And interestingly, actually, in all that hot weather, you might have wanted to get out of the car, maybe out of the train, that sort of thing. And that's been driving, amongst other things, the use of electric scooters, increasingly popular now in many European cities and, of course, in the United States. They're available for hire in more than 100 cities around the world.
But after the recent deaths of riders in London and Paris, how safe are they? Tom Edwards has been investigating.
Rush hour in Islington and a handful of e-scooter riders are getting stopped by police. Here they're getting a warning, but officers have given out fines. For riders like David Carboni, who bought his electric scooter last week, it's frustrating.
I think it's really hard because they're such a good vehicle for the city. You know, they're reducing congestion, they're reducing pollution. You know, you really want to be able to have something like this to use. I think because the law it's old, it's a bit of a grey area, it's just falling between two stools. I think we really need to resolve it because this is the kind of thing you want to have in a city rather than all this traffic.
E-scooter safety hit the headlines after the death of the presenter Emily Hartridge here in Battersea 3 weeks ago. Even though they're illegal on public roads and pavements, thousands are used every day in the capital.
It's really important that we just make sure people do understand that it is illegal now, that there are risks associated with using e-scooters in public. They're not intended for the roads or the pavements, and so we'll educate the public, and then where we need to, we will take enforcement action.
Their supporters say they're cheap, convenient and have no emissions. And Transport for London want new laws introduced quickly to help regulate them.
Let's keep the pavements clear. Let's put specifications around the scooters if they're going to be allowed to mean that they're safe, for example, on limited on speeds. But also, let's mean that we have an ability to prevent clutter so they can't just be left everywhere, particularly on a rental scheme.
The Met says around 100 riders have been stopped this week. Other countries have regulated e-scooters. The government says it's reviewing their use, but for many, that's taking too long. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
So let's talk about some of the implications of all that. We can speak to Peter Roger, who's from the road safety charity I Am Road Smart, and Michael Quintana, who's from the organisation Rideables, that promotes micro-mobility vehicles, including e-scooters. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Peter, maybe I can start with you, because we saw in that report there, we've seen how fast these things go. We see that they're on roads alongside big trucks, heavy vehicles, and of course we've seen those awful deaths lately. You want to see these banned, don't you?
Not in those terms, no. They currently are illegal in the first place, but they're an attractive, and the attractions are obvious in terms of space and so on. But what we do need to do is be really careful how we introduce them. At the moment, if you were to put them in amongst the traffic, drivers don't want the additional hazard of these small, very fast, relatively difficult to see items moving around in the traffic. Cyclists don't want them in the cycle lanes, and pedestrians don't want them on the pavement. So we need to find a way of integrating them into our systems carefully and safely, rather than just letting loose and taking whatever the consequence may be.
Michael Quintana, I mean, the case laid out there from Peter about, yes, they need separate space, they need a separate lane perhaps. The reality is that's not going to happen, is it? How do you make these things safe on the roads?
They're already pretty much inherently safe. The protocols and policies we put in place are related to the devices themselves. And with the current electric scooters that you typically see, I think it's the Xiaomi M365, these guys are able to occupy the bicycle lanes the same manner as a bicycle. They are able to go similar average speeds as a bicycle, typically even slower than your more professional riders that you might see riding on their daily commute. So they're really, yes, we'd all love separate lanes. That would be ideal, but in a lot of forward-thinking countries, they've actually created lanes that are multi-use lanes. So it's one giant lane that is accommodating electric rideables and your cyclists and other vehicles of that nature. So we're all ready to share the same lanes as it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at these pictures of these scooters being used, and as you said, very popular in many European cities. But the fact is, people are having to break the law in the UK to use them because they can't go on the pavement, they can't go on the road, and it's that doubt and it's that sort of worry that means that people are using them unsafely, isn't it?
Well, the reason people are unsafe is usually because of their behaviour. you are extremely vulnerable, as a cyclist is or a motorcyclist, on a device of this general nature, because you've got no protection around you. And you're physically small, so difficult to see. So you have that set of issues which we need to overcome in order to make it safe, not only for the users of them, but for the other people around them.
But I don't think that's accurate in a lot of ways, because we're, funny enough, as an electric scooter or other electric rideables, there are lights already on the back of them, almost by standard. So if you compare that to your average cyclist who might have a light, electric scooters and rideables, whenever you brake on an electric rideable, the light flashes red. There's an indicator light on the front as well. So because we're in an upright position, whether you're on an electric scooter, electric unicycle, or an e-skateboard, you're upright. You're actually more visible to traffic just by the nature of the riding position that you have.
But Michael, chances are people are going to be more familiar with a bike, and we know that bike hire schemes around the world are hugely popular. There were a lot of concerns when they were introduced about wearing helmets and people's proficiency on a bike. But the chances are people will have been on a bike before in their life. They probably haven't been on an electric scooter, and that's the issue, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, a lot of people, I've cycled, I've also ridden a regular push scooter. The convenience of these objects or these devices is that you can fold them up, you take it with you. So you go inside the shop or cafe or work, charge it there, whether it's electric or even a push scooter. It's there in your office where you need it. If you're on a bike, which is fantastic and healthy as well, I want to promote that. We do recognize that. You're also subject to leaving that outside. The rates of theft are, as everyone knows, is huge. But really what we want to say is with electric rideables, there's the innovation, the new industry sector that's waiting to open up. There's a company called Evolve Skateboards in Australia. Mm-hmm. They've blown up. They've been legalized over there, and it's a huge economy that is booming over there. And we'd like to bring that, with all the austerity and all the difficulties here.
Yeah. Peter, briefly for us, I just wonder, what you want to see change now to make this safer. Is it just about a change in the law about where you can ride these?
We need to be quite careful about how we do it. We need to work out where the safe place for them to be ridden is, and we need to work out what other constraints that it would be sensible to apply. In simplistic terms, Michael's been talking about having a light on the back. Do we need a light on the front? There are a series of things that we need to sit down, work out carefully before we just pull the plug and say, right, the law's now changed. It's not something to do literally overnight. It needs a bit of thought, a bit of care.
Peter, it's good to talk to you. Peter Roger there from I'm Road Smart and Michael Quintana at Rideables. We're grateful for you braving the weather as well there in central London. It's not scooter weather by any stretch, is it? Thanks very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Cheers.